San Francisco got another look from the players themselves. The NFLPA report card style grading landed, and like usual, there's stuff that makes you cheer and stuff that makes you scrunch your face. At the top of the list, you've got the strength coaches, the weight room, and the food program getting glow-up level marks. Players clearly feel they're being prepped physically and fed right. But right next to those A's and A pluses are stingy C's and C minuses for the training room and training. Staff. And that contradiction is what's going to make a lot of faithful pause. I want to walk you through the grades, explain what they actually mean for day-to-day players, and then tell you what I think should happen next. If you're a diehard who cares about the roster and the next Super Bowl push, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We break this stuff down the way only fans who live and breathe 49ers do. Quick question while we kick this off. Do you agree with players giving the training staff a low grade? Drop a yes or no in the comments so I can pin a poll and we can see what the locker room vibe is among our viewers. Here's the headline summary. Strength coaches and the weight room get glowing feedback. Players gave them some of the highest scores on the sheet. That tells you there's pride in the conditioning programs and the day-to-day gym culture. Guys feel stronger, they feel coached there, and that's an important baseline for a team that wants to be physical. On the flip side, the training room and the training staff scored near the bottom of the list. That's the place players go to get taped, to get treated, and to recover. So when it gets a C or C minus, it reads as frustration around injury treatment and rehab processes. I know fans immediately connect that to the team's injury curse, and we'll unpack whether that connection is fair in the next chapter. But first, just let that contrast sit. Excellence in strength work, concern in recovery, and treatment. A couple of other quick things jump off the list. Food and dining scored very highly. Not sexy, but it matters. Family treatment and the top of the organization, coach, GM, ownership, scored solidly positive. That pattern tells me players feel respected at the leadership level even if they're frustrated with specific operational areas. It's an important nuance. You can have a strong culture from the top down while still having competence gaps in specialty services like rehab. If you're watching and thinking that lines up with what we've seen on the injury report, you're not alone. If you're thinking maybe training room gets blamed for bigger structural problems, stick with me. I'm going to lay both sides on the table. Before I get into the deeper whys next, and why an A for strength coaches doesn't automatically absolve training staff, quick mid-roll. If this breakdown is useful, and if you want the faithful to keep getting real behind-the-scenes style context, please consider supporting the channel with a super thanks or hype. That isn't a donation, it's fuel for the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy, and it helps us invest in better production and more research on these topics. We're aiming to hit 2,000 subscribers, so more faithful voices join the conversation. Help us get there, and we'll keep bringing the inside angle. Okay, back to the grades. Next, I'll dig into why players are handing out A's for strength, and what that actually means. Week to week, then we'll take the tougher look at the training room scores and what they imply about accountability. If you've got a thought right now, say the name of the staffer you want to defend or call out in the comments. I'll read the best ones out loud in the next video. When you look at the grades across the board, the first thing that jumps out, and honestly it should make you feel good, is how strong the performance side of the building looks. The weight room pulls an A. The SOD strength coaches pull an A. Nutrition and food services are near the top of the scale. That's not accidental, that's players saying, when it comes to preparing my body to compete, this organization shows up. Think about what that actually means on a daily basis. It's early mornings in the facility. It's individualized lift plans. It's monitoring workload, tracking explosiveness, building recovery lifts into the weekly rhythm. When strength coaches get an A from the locker room, that's not about vibes, that's about trust. That's players believing the program is built for performance, not just for optics. And here's where I want you to lean in for a second, because this is important. A lot of fans lump strength coaches into the injury conversation automatically. You've heard it before. They're not preparing guys right. Soft tissue injuries mean bad conditioning. But if the players themselves are grading that group at the top of the scale, that tells you something different. That tells you the men inside that locker room don't see the strength program as the problem. That's a powerful data point. Now let's expand that lens. Food and dining getting elite marks? That matters more than most fans realize. NFL seasons are wars of attrition. Proper fueling, recovery shakes, access to quality meals at the facility, that's culture building stuff. That's an organization saying, we're investing in your body. And the players are responding positively. Ownership, the general. Manager, the head coach, all graded strong. That suggests alignment at the top. Players feel heard. They feel supported. They feel like leadership isn't cutting corners. And in today's NFL, that's not universal. Across the league, you see wide swings in how players feel about ownership commitment. The fact that San Francisco scores well there tells you something about organizational stability. Now here's where I want to ask you something directly. If the strength program is strong, if the nutrition program is strong, if leadership is respected, then what explains the disconnect when we pivot to the training room? Hold that thought. We're going there next. But before we do, I want your take. Which area do you feel most confident in right now as a fan? The coaching staff, the performance staff, or ownership? Drop one word in the comments: coaching, performance, or ownership. And let's see where the faithful stands. And if you're getting value out of this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps amplify this community. If you want deeper dives like this, not just surface headlines, but real context, hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Now let's talk coaching specifically, because those grades matter too. Kyle Shanahan pulling an A- tells you the locker room still believes in him. Offensive coordinator graded high. Defensive coordinator graded high. Position coaches graded strong. That's players endorsing the day-to-day teaching environment. And you know as well as I do, players do not hand out high grades just because a coach calls good plays. They grade based on communication, preparation, accountability, and respect. When the majority of your coaching staff scores well, that reinforces the idea that the culture inside the meeting rooms is stable. There's structure, there's buy-in, and that matters when adversity hits. But here's the tension building under the surface. You've got a team that's praised for strength and conditioning, praised for coaching, praised for leadership. Yet the narrative around injuries has never been louder. So the question becomes, is this a perception problem? Or is there a specific operational area that players feel is failing them once they're hurt? Because preparation and recovery are not the same thing. In the next chapter, we're going to zero in on the grades that made fans raise their eyebrows, the training room, and the training staff. We're going to separate emotion from evidence, and we're going to ask the tough question, is this a red flag, or is it frustration spilling over from a season filled with injuries? And I want you thinking about that as we move forward. Is the low grade a symptom, or the root cause? We're diving into that right now. Now we get to the part that's going to spark real debate, because this is where feelings start mixing with facts. The training room pulls a C-. The training staff pulls a C-. And you don't need me to tell you that immediately connects to one word in every 49ers fan's vocabulary: injuries. When a team has dealt with wave after wave of players missing time, the spotlight naturally swings toward the medical and recovery side of the building. But let's slow this down and separate what the training room actually controls versus what fans assume it controls. The strength staff focuses on preparation, building, durability, explosiveness, flexibility, and resilience before the game ever starts. The training staff steps in once something goes wrong. They handle rehab plans, treatment schedules, taping, recovery protocols, soft tissue therapy, return-to-play timelines. So when players grade that side of the house lower, it doesn't automatically mean incompetence. It can mean communication issues. It can mean dissatisfaction with recovery speed. It can mean players feel their bodies aren't bouncing back the way they expect. But perception matters. If you're a player who misses multiple weeks, sits in rehab daily, feels like progress is slow, even if medically appropriate, frustration builds. And frustration shows up in anonymous surveys. Now here's the uncomfortable question for us as fans. Does a C- reflect systemic failure, or does it reflect emotional residue from a season where too many guys were in that room too often? Because here's the contradiction again. The strength program is highly rated. The weight room is highly rated. That suggests preparation isn't the glaring weakness. So are injuries simply football being football, or is there something about recovery processes that players believe needs improvement? And this is where the optics hurt. When you've built a reputation league-wide for being one of the most banged-up teams year after year, even if some of that is random variance, any low medical grade feeds the narrative. It reinforces what fans already believe. It becomes confirmation bias fuel. But remember, these grades come from players. That gives them weight. This isn't media spin. This isn't outside speculation. It's internal sentiment. There's also the team travel grade, C+. That one surprised some people. Travel impacts recovery more than fans realize. Flight timing, sleep schedules, post-game treatment access, hotel accommodations. Those details affect how players feel on short weeks. A slightly above average grade there might suggest there's room to optimize logistics. Not a disaster, but not elite. Then you've got locker room and family treatment grades sitting in the solid but not spectacular range. Those are cultural barometers. They don't scream dysfunction, but they don't scream best in class either. So here's the bigger picture forming. Leadership, strong. Coaching, strong. Strength and performance, strong. Medical and recovery, questionable in the eyes of players. That split is fascinating, because if you fix the medical side, even marginally, you potentially stabilize the entire perception of the organization. And perception matters in free agency. Players talk, agents talk. Word spreads about how teams handle rehab and recovery. Now I want your honest take. Is this a red flag? If you believe the training staff grade signals a real structural issue, type red flag in the comments. If you think it's frustration amplified by a rough injury year, type overblown. I genuinely want to see where the faithful lands on this. And if you're still locked in with me right now, quick favor, hit the like button. That tells the algorithm 49ers fans want deeper conversations, not just headline reactions. Because here's where accountability comes in. When players publicly, even anonymously, signal dissatisfaction, front offices pay attention. Even if they don't make sweeping changes, they review processes. They audit communication. They reevaluate return-to-play protocols. No organization that scores below average in a category just shrugs it off. The 49ers ranked around the middle of the league overall. That's not embarrassing, but it's not elite either. And for a franchise chasing championships, middle of the pack shouldn't feel comfortable. The final question is what this means going forward. Does ownership double down and invest further in recovery science? Do we see subtle staffing changes? Do we hear players speak more openly about rehab satisfaction next season? Because if the goal is another Super Bowl run, durability becomes just as important as talent. In this final chapter, I'm going to lay out exactly what this report card should mean for you as a fan, not emotionally but strategically, and whether this changes how we evaluate the organization moving forward. So what does all of this actually mean for you? Not the emotional reaction, not the Twitter outrage, not the instant fire somebody response. I mean strategically. What does this report card mean for the future of the San Francisco 49ers? First, it confirms something important. This is not a broken organization. When ownership, the general manager, and the head coach all score strong, that tells you the foundation is stable. Players believe in the direction. They believe in leadership. That matters more than any single C- on a spreadsheet. Second, it reinforces that the performance side of the building is respected. Strength coaches earning top marks means the locker room trusts how they're being prepared physically. That's huge. You don't win deep in January without elite preparation. That part of the machine is humming. But third, and this is the part that can't be ignored, perception around medical and recovery support needs attention. Even if the grades are partially frustration-driven, perception influences morale. It influences contract decisions. It influences how players talk to each other across the league. and championships are won on margins. If the front office can take this feedback seriously, audit processes, tighten communication, maybe enhance resources, then this report card becomes a tool, not a scarlet letter. The best organizations adapt, they evolve, they treat criticism as data. Now here's the question I want you thinking about long term. If this team stays healthy next season, does this entire conversation disappear? Probably. Which tells you something powerful. Durability may be the swing factor between middle of the pack, perception, and elite organization. The roster talent is there, the coaching credibility is there, the leadership alignment is there. Health is the multiplier. So do you trust ownership and the front office to address this? Type yes or no in the comments. I want a clear read from the faithful. And before we close this out, let me talk to you directly for a second. If you care about this team the way I do, if you want smart, honest breakdowns instead of surface-level reactions, help us build this community. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and every new member strengthens the voice of the faithful here. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, be part of it. And if you want to go a step further, consider using Super Thanks or Hype. That's not a donation, that's fuel for the quest for the next Super Bowl trophy. It helps us upgrade production, dig deeper into research, and build content worthy of this fan base. You're not just supporting a channel, you're investing in the community. At the end of the day, this NFLPA report card isn't doom and gloom. It's not blind praise either, it's feedback. And how the 49ers respond to feedback will tell us more about their championship ceiling than the grades themselves. The foundation is strong. The question is whether the finishing touches get sharper.